No one could handle the billionaire's daughter. A janitor did the impossible. The glass walls of Andrews Global Industries glimmered under the morning sun, like a monument to success. Inside, Evelyn Andrews, the billionaire CEO and single mother, stood with her arms crossed, watching through her office window as her daughter, Chloe, was escorted out of another private school, expelled for the 5th time in 2 years. At only 16, Chloe had become infamous for her arrogance and rebellion. Teachers called her unreachable, employees called her untouchable, and her mother called her my biggest failure. Evelyn had built her empire from scratch: luxury hotels, tech startups, charities, but no amount of money or discipline seemed to work on Chloe. She had given her everything: private tutors, therapists, personal chefs, and bodyguards. Still, Chloe lashed out at everyone. Her attitude was poison. She humiliated staff, skipped classes, and treated everyone beneath her as disposable. Evelyn's heart ached, not from embarrassment, but from guilt. She had traded bedtime stories for board meetings, family dinners for conference calls. At home, their mansion was filled with silence, broken only by Chloe shouting when things didn't go her way. Evelyn's staff feared her daughter so much that most had resigned. One by one, they left, until only a handful of workers remained. The final straw came when Chloe threw a silver tray at the family chef because her meal was too warm. That same week, Evelyn called an emergency meeting. "We're hiring new domestic staff," she said, frustration sharpening her tone. "But this time, I want someone who won't quit in 2 days." Her assistant nodded nervously, scrolling through candidates. One profile stood out: James Carter, a 47-year-old janitor with decades of experience, recently laid off from a school that had shut down due to budget cuts. He wasn't highly educated, but his references praised his patience and kindness. "A janitor?" Evelyn frowned. "We're not running a school here." "Ma'am," her assistant replied, "he's the only one who doesn't seem intimidated by your daughter's reputation." Evelyn sighed. "Fine. Call him in." That afternoon, James arrived, tall, with rough hands and a calm smile that reached his eyes. Chloe took one look at him and scoffed. "Seriously? A janitor? What's he going to do? Mop my attitude away?" James didn't respond. He simply nodded politely and said, "Nice to meet you, Miss Chloe. I'll do my best to keep things tidy around here." Little did they know his arrival would change everything. The next morning, Chloe woke to find James humming quietly as he swept the marble floors outside her bedroom. "You missed a spot," she said coldly. "And while you're at it, make my smoothie, almond milk, no sugar. Try not to mess it up." James simply smiled. "Sorry, Mississippi. I don't do smoothies. I clean messes." Her jaw dropped. "Excuse me? Do you know who I am?" "Yes," James said, glancing up. "A young woman who's testing how far kindness can bend before it breaks." Chloe froze. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not teachers, not nannies, not even her mother. "You're fired," she hissed, spinning on her heel. But Evelyn overheard the commotion and intervened. "Mr. Carter stays," she said firmly. "And, Chloe, maybe you could learn something from him." Days turned into weeks, and Chloe tried everything to make James quit, spilling drinks on freshly mopped floors, insulting his clothes, even locking him out in the rain. But he never raised his voice. He cleaned, repaired, and occasionally shared gentle words of wisdom. "Sometimes," he told her one evening, "people act out because they feel unseen. But throwing dirt never makes anyone shine brighter." His calmness irritated her, but something about his words lingered. At night, Chloe found herself thinking about her late father, who had died when she was 10. Since then, her mother had drowned herself in work, leaving Chloe with material comfort but emotional emptiness. Anger had become her shield, and now, somehow, this janitor saw through it. A week later, Evelyn hosted a gala for investors at the mansion. Chloe was ordered to behave. She rolled her eyes but showed up in a stunning red dress. During dinner, one guest mocked the waitstaff for being too slow, and Chloe laughed along, until she saw James quietly cleaning up spilled wine behind them. The way he moved, humble, unbothered, made her chest tighten. After the gala, she found him fixing a broken lamp in the hallway. "Why don't you ever get mad?" she asked. James chuckled softly. "Because anger doesn't clean anything. It just spreads the dirt." For the first time, Chloe didn't have a comeback. Instead, she whispered, "You sound like my dad used to." James looked up, surprised. "He must have been a good man." "He was," she said, her voice trembling. "But after he died, everything changed." That night, Evelyn found Chloe sitting alone in the garden. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked. Chloe just nodded. Evelyn was too busy to notice the tears glistening in her daughter's eyes. James began to teach Chloe small lessons without her realizing it. When she threw a tantrum over her broken phone, he silently handed her a broom. "What's this for?" she demanded. "Perspective," he replied. "Sweep your own mess before blaming the world." She rolled her eyes but did it anyway, and something shifted. The more she spent time around James, the more she realized how little gratitude she had shown. She started saying thank you. She even helped him one afternoon polish the floor. When Evelyn walked in and saw them laughing, she nearly dropped her coffee cup. "Are you cleaning?" Evelyn asked, astonished. "Just bonding," James said with a wink. Chloe blushed. "It's not a big deal, Mom." But it was. For the first time, Evelyn saw the daughter she'd been missing. Not the heiress, but the girl. A month later, Chloe's transformation had just begun, but the world hadn't changed with her. During a high-profile charity event hosted at their mansion, Evelyn introduced Chloe to a group of elite guests, hoping to rebuild her public image. Everything was going smoothly until one of the guest sons, a smug young heir named Dylan Reeves, made a cruel remark about James. "Why is there a janitor walking around the ballroom?" Dylan sneered loudly. "Is this some kind of social experiment?" Chloe froze. Everyone laughed, including a few of Evelyn's business partners. Her old self would have laughed too, but now her stomach turned. She looked at James, who continued cleaning a spill near the buffet unbothered, his face calm but his eyes heavy with quiet sadness. Without thinking, Chloe slammed her glass down. "You think you're better because you were born rich?" she snapped. The laughter stopped. "He works harder in a day than you have in your entire life." Gasps filled the room. Evelyn's heart raced, but she didn't interrupt. Dylan's smirk faltered. Chloe turned to James. "I'm sorry they said that," she said softly. James gave her a small smile. "You don't owe me an apology, Miss Chloe. People's reflections show who they are, not who they talk about." Later that night, Evelyn sat alone, replaying her daughter's words. She realized she'd spent years teaching Chloe to be strong, but never kind. James, a man with nothing to his name, had done more for Chloe's soul in a few weeks than she had in years. Evelyn couldn't sleep. She went downstairs and found James polishing the marble floor at midnight. "You've done something to her," she said quietly. He smiled. "No, ma'am. She just needed someone to listen." Evelyn sighed. "I've given her everything money can buy. Why couldn't I reach her?" James set down his mop. "Because love isn't bought, Ms. Andrews. It's built, one patient word at a time." Those words hit her harder than any boardroom negotiation. For the first time, Evelyn sat beside one of her employees and spoke openly. She confessed her fears of losing control, of failing as a mother, of watching her daughter become someone she didn't recognize. James listened silently, nodding. "Maybe you should let her fail sometimes," he finally said. "You can't protect someone from the lessons they need to learn." The next morning, Evelyn decided to do something radical. She took a week off work. Her board of directors were shocked. The media speculated wildly. But she didn't care. She spent that week with Chloe, cooking breakfast, watching movies, walking the gardens. It was awkward at first, but slowly, they began to laugh again, something they hadn't done in years. Just when everything seemed perfect, life reminded them how fragile change could be. Evelyn received devastating news. Her company's major deal, a billion-dollar hotel merger, had collapsed due to a scandal involving her partner. The media tore her apart, headlines screaming, "Billionaire Evelyn Andrews under fire." Suddenly, she was drowning in calls, meetings, and panic. Chloe, terrified, reverted to old habits, yelling at staff, slamming doors, demanding attention. James watched silently, waiting for the right moment. One evening, he found her sitting in her father's old library, eyes red. "You're angry again," he said gently. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Everything's falling apart. Mom's breaking down, and I can't do anything." He sat beside her. "You can," he said. "You can be the calm she needs now. You've seen how chaos feels, so be her peace." That night, Chloe made her mother tea and left a note on her desk that simply read, "You don't have to do it alone anymore." Evelyn cried reading it. 2 days later, a small electrical fire broke out in the kitchen. Panic spread through the mansion. Chloe, half asleep, smelled smoke and ran downstairs. Flames licked the walls, alarms blaring. Evelyn shouted for staff to evacuate. But someone was missing: James. Without hesitation, Chloe ran back inside, ignoring her mother's screams. She found James trapped behind a fallen beam, coughing through the smoke. "Leave me," he wheezed. "Not a chance," she said, using all her strength to drag a chair under the beam. The fire crackled closer. Somehow, she freed him, and they stumbled out together, collapsing on the lawn. Firefighters arrived minutes later. Evelyn rushed to them, tears streaming. "You could have died," she sobbed. Chloe, still trembling, looked at James and whispered, "You taught me courage. I wasn't going to watch another person I love disappear." In that moment, Evelyn realized the truth. Her daughter had changed, not through control, but through compassion. James recovered slowly, his hands bandaged. Evelyn insisted he rest, but he refused to stay idle. "I'm a janitor, Ms. Andrews. Cleaning up messes is what I do," he joked. One morning, Chloe surprised him with a small gift, a framed photo of the three of them, her mother, and James, taken by a staff member the day before the fire. Below it, she'd written, "Family isn't blood. It's who shows up when everyone else walks away." James blinked back tears. "I don't know what to say." "Just say you'll stay," Evelyn said softly. "Not as staff. As part of our family." He smiled. "I'll stay as long as you need me. But remember, one day, you'll have to pass these lessons on yourselves." And they did. Evelyn began a new charity program for underprivileged youth, the Carter Foundation, named after the janitor who taught her daughter humility. Chloe volunteered every weekend, mentoring kids who reminded her of her younger self. Years later, Chloe stood on stage at a youth conference, now 24 and radiant. She had become a motivational speaker, teaching young people about empathy and self-worth. Evelyn watched from the audience, tears in her eyes. "My name is Chloe Andrews," she began, "and I used to think money could fix everything. But the truth is, it took a janitor to clean the mess inside my heart." The crowd was silent, then erupted in applause. James, now retired, sat proudly in the front row. When she finished, she walked off stage and hugged him tightly. "You changed my life," she whispered. He smiled. "No, Chloe. You cleaned your own mess. I just handed you the broom." That night, Evelyn looked up at the stars above their rebuilt home and finally felt peace. Not because she had regained her wealth, but because she had regained her daughter.